Welcome to the Spanish OA virtual group Hay una solución, which means there is a solution. Our group started around a year before the pandemic. We're open in Zoom 24/7 every day of the year. We have around 70 meetings a week, so there is no excuse not to take advantage of this. We have special meetings such as one for anorexias, bulimia, compulsive overeaters, and we welcome children as young as 8 years old with their parents. We focus on recovery by working the 12 steps and living on steps 10, 11, and 12 as a way of life. Today is July 24th, and we're doing a retreat with Harlan. My name is Elida, and I'm your moderator. We have simultaneous translation into Spanish, provided by Monica. To choose the Spanish option, please go down in the screen to the world icon, as you can see in the screen right now, and then you choose Spanish. And don't forget to stop the mute the original one. If you are in your phone, you can either find it to the left, the language, or you can use the three dots to get the interpretation. And in Motorola, you can see the word thing and the interpretation. So if you have si tienen algún problema con la traducción, con esto, por favor escríbanle al chat y una persona en el tech support las va a acompañar. This meeting is being recorded, but only the audio will be published. Our speaker this morning is Harlan, who has many years in OA and has a great message of recovery to share with us. This is a summer refresher of the 12-step program. This is session 3. This is the third session. Harlan is a recovered compulsive overeater from Scottsdale, Arizona, and he has been in OA since 1979, over 30 years. He has shared his experience, strength, and hope with thousands of compulsive overeaters. During this 3 days workshop, he will present to us the 12 steps of recovery as outlined in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. The opinions expressed here are those of the people expressing them and do not represent OA as a whole. 12-step programs don't have celebrities or representatives, but they do have people with very good recovery who have great deal of knowledge and experience in the program who could help us a lot. Harlan is definitely one of these people. There will be a period of questions at the end of the talk. For questions, please, you can either put it in the chat or raise your hand and you will be recognized. And without further ado, it's my pleasure to leave you with Harlan.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm so very happy to be here this afternoon, and I'm so glad that we're all assembled here together. And I'm looking forward to the days when we can all be in the same room, but this is very nice too, because it makes it easier for more people to participate. But I'm also looking forward to the days when we can all be together at conventions and retreats and things like that. The Saturday afternoon sessions are always a lot of fun. It's more kind of laid back. Everybody's kind of more used to where they are and everything else. So it's nice. It's really nice. Okay. We have been talking about the first 2 steps of the program of Overeaters Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous. And we've talked about not only step 1, but we've also talked about step 2. And we found the history of step 2. Hopefully you find it as fascinating as I find it, because I think that the history of step 2 is really nothing short of a modern day miracle. To think that in the forest of suspicion as to what alcoholism is it weak will? Is it lack of character? Is it lack of discipline? Is it lack of willpower? Is it a form of insanity? God made it possible for us to find that solution in Him, in the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, Overeaters Anonymous. And now when we're going to get to chapter 5, which is how it works, we haven't the time to cover chapters 2, 3, and 4. I do as much as I can to cover the principles of these chapters, And the gist of these chapters, I do as good a job as I can do, but we haven't the time. So we're going to skip up to step 3 and 4 in this chapter. Steps 3 and 4 are the most misunderstood steps. And what we have a tendency to do is overblow them and make them into something that they're not. So hopefully my goal this afternoon is to simplify these steps for you so that never again will you be paralyzed with fear as you look at the precipice of doing them either for yourself or with sponsees. So I want to try to do the best to demystify these steps. Page 58 is where we're going to begin. But before we begin, I'm just going to give you a little background. The first 4 chapters of the big book are in the bank at this time. Bill had written them. Somebody's unmuted. He had just finished We Agnostics, and he knew that it was time for him to lay out the actual program of action. And the first 2 steps are not action steps. The first 3 steps, are not action steps. The first 2 steps are conclusions of the mind. Am I a compulsive overeater? Based on the fact that I have this physical allergy, which I can prove through my experience. Based on the fact that I have a twist of the mind that drives me irresistibly into the food. Can I understand or can I conceive that I am a compulsive overeater? And can I be honest with myself?
We all know there's
and the answer is yes. Somebody's still unmuted.
And maybe active imaginations. So I don't think there were 4,500 relevant hits.
Somebody's unmuted. So if you're in charge or you got the host thing, okay, thanks. Step number 2. Came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. And this is where these pockets of agnosticism will rear their ugly head. Do I believe that the power greater than myself can come and help me with this thing? And the answer is yes, I do. But I have to work at it. We've all had issues with this God thing. We've all had issues with the concept of God. People died that we loved, or things just didn't go our way. And a lot of times God was the one that got the blame. And that's an unfortunate thing for us and for the whole situation. It's just too bad that we do that. But we do that because we're human. We don't do that because we're compulsive overeaters. We do that because we're human. We have doubts. And I have to cast those doubts to one side. Whoa. And I find that when I walk to God, he runs to me. The third step is turn my will and life over to the care of God as I understood him. And that's a decision. There's nothing I do for that. The one thing I'm going to do with step 3 is work 4 through 12. That's what step 3 is. Step 3 is actually the formal terms of surrender, if you will. That's what Joe and Charlie say. And I love that description. It is the formal terms of surrender. And what I'm doing when I take step 3 is I'm making a decision to do 4 through 12 every day for the rest of my life. Prior to lunch or prior to the break, we had a person put in the chat. I don't know who it was, obviously, but man, woman, whatever it is, I don't know. And they said that they did 4, 5, 6, 10 steps a day. And when you do a step 10, you're actually doing 4 through 12 every time you do that. So that's how you do it. A lot of people don't understand. How do I do 4 through 12 every day? You mean I have to do a 4-step every day? Well, when you do 10s and you do 11s, you're actually doing 4 through 12 every day. And we'll get into that more tomorrow. Let's go to page 58. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed up. Oh, I know what I wanted to cover. Hold on just a second before we get into the chapter. Go ahead, translators. But Bill knew that the first 4 chapters plus the doctor's opinion were in the bag. He knew that they were written, and he had to come up with putting down the actual program of action. And he said that this was at a time when he was very nocturnal. Most of the big book was written on Walnut Street in Newark, New Jersey, at Hank Parkhurst's office of honor dealers. Hank Parkhurst was the first person in New York, besides Bill, to get sober. And Hank loomed large in the history of the Big Book, which we don't have the time to go into today. But Bill wrote chapter 5 primarily at his house at 182 Clinton Street in Brooklyn. And he said that it was like the pencil had a life of its own. It just seemed to sail across the pages. And in about 20 minutes, he wrote one of the greatest pieces of spiritual literature inside one of the greatest pieces of spiritual literature that the world has ever seen. And that is chapter 5 of the Big Book. And they forced some changes on him. And the chapter was met with much controversy because they were working a 6-step program, which we'll describe in a little bit. And now it was a 12-step program, and that didn't rest too well with some of the boys. So we'll get into that, but that's exactly what happened and how it happened. Let's go to page 58. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. Usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. Honest with myself about what? Now, the easy answer is honest about everything, and that's really what we're shooting for. However, what's most important is that I'm honest first and foremost with the fact that I am a compulsive overeater and that my life is unmanageable, and that at no time can I play with French fries. Can I play with cake or cookies or Doritos? I can't play with French toast. I can't play with pie. When I play with them, they win and they beat me down into submission. They do a number on me that my worst enemy wouldn't do. And yet, because of the built-in forgetter, because of the mental blank spot, I will forget all of the horrible things that food did to me. And I will focus only on what the food did for me. And I will justify picking up food that I know damn well I really don't want to be eating that's killing me. And I will justify it in my own mind as being okay. And anytime I have to justify something or sell myself on something, I know that that's not God's will. That's my will. And that's what I know. And so I have to avoid that at all costs. There are such unfortunates. They are not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. That's the second time that the word honesty is mentioned in this paragraph. It must be pretty important. And this honesty again is, do I concede to my innermost self that I am a compulsive overeater? Because if I don't, then I won't find it necessary to do the work that I know I need to do to recover. And if I don't do that work, eventually I'm going to go back into the food. It is not a question of if I'm going to eat again. It is only a question of when I'm going to eat again. Very important. That's the second time that the word honesty is used in this paragraph. Their chances are less than average. There are those too who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. There's the third time that the concept of honesty is introduced into the paragraph. And we've already discussed what's so important and what's paramount is the honesty that I have of, yes, I am a compulsive overeater. Why do you think we say, hi, I'm Harlan, I'm a compulsive overeater? Why do you think we keep saying that at meetings? Is that so that other people will know that I'm a compulsive overeater? No, we could just as easily wear name tags. You know, when we go to conventions like the OA birthday, or we go to the Vision Convention in Newark, New Jersey, or any kind of convention or any kind of retreat, you wear a name tag. One of the first things you do is you register for the convention or you register for the retreat. And what are you given right away? You are given what? A name tag. So we could just wear name tags, right? Or on Zoom, it's pretty easy because in most cases, unless you've gone in there and did something to it, I can see your name. I can see who you are. So why is it necessary to say, hi, I'm Harlan. I am a compulsive overeater. It's not so that you'll remember it. It's so that I will remember it. I need to hear my own voice saying, hi, I'm Harlan, and I am a compulsive overeater. And you'll see people or hear people, and you have for many years, hi, I'm Joe, I'm Mary, I'm Cindy, I'm Fred, I'm a sugar addict and an emotional eater, and I'm a night eater, and I'm a this eater, and then you see you hear all kinds of other descriptions. If I say to you, hi, I'm Harlan, and I am a compulsive overeater, I've said it all. There's really nothing more to add to that, because as a compulsive overeater, I compulsively overeat at night and in the morning and in the afternoon. If I'm a compulsive overeater, I'm a sugar addict. If I'm a compulsive overeater, I'm an emotional eater, whatever that may be. So if I say, hi, I'm Harlan, I'm a compulsive overeater, I've covered all the bases. I've covered all the bases. Okay, now let's continue. Our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. Do you remember this morning when we were doing Bill's story, and it said on page 13, I think? Let me look up the page so I'm not giving you misinformation. It says here on page 13, I was correct. My schoolmate visited me, and I said that was Ebby, and they did their fifth step together. Well, what Ebby had under his arm, he had it under his arm over here, was a book. And the book was called The Varieties of Religious Experience by William James. This book is written by a psychologist, William James, and there was a convention of psychologists in Edinburgh, Scotland in 1901. And at this conference, these psychologists were relating how some of their patients discovered God. And what they found, and they put it together in the book, they found that people who discover God had a life, and then something happened in their life that was catastrophic. And through this catastrophe, they found God. So it was what these people were like, what happened, and what they're like now. Does that sound familiar? It should. Because of William James, The Varieties of Religious Experience is why you have 42 stories in the back of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. This is exactly why you have the stories that you have, so that people who were alcoholics could relate in the book to the stories in the back of the book. And hopefully this will go a long way toward drawing these people in. Okay, so that's why. And those stories are in the back of our big book of AA. If you've decided you want what we have, what is it that we have? We have a bunch of people that are not compulsively overeating. That's the tip of the iceberg. There are people right now, it's 11:21 here in Arizona. There are people right this minute that are at Krispy Kreme. There's a Krispy Kreme maybe a block from my house at the most, maybe more accurate, like 3/4 of a block from my house. And there are people at Krispy Kreme right this very second, and they are going to eat a half a donut. They're with their spouse, or they're with their kid, or they're with a friend, and they're going to buy one donut, and they're going to split that donut, and neither person is going to finish their half of donut. I know that sounds really weird, but there are people like that. I'm just not one of them. You give me a half a donut, and that store is going to be in trouble of not having any merchandise in it by the time I get done, let me tell you. But there are people at Krispy Kreme right now that are not compulsively overeating. It says, if you've decided you want what we have are compulsive overeaters, people who are at disease with food. They have a physical allergy and a mental twist that sets them apart from the normal everyday eater, that are not eating compulsively, and they are happy in their release. That's what it's about. That's what we have. You could diet and be stark raving abstinent, but you won't be a happy person. You'll be like a dry drunk. Dry drunks are miserable people, just miserable. And we are not people like that. If we're in recovery, we are free. And how free do you want to be? You got to do the work. If you've decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, I hate it when people call me up and they give me a laundry list of what they're not willing to do. They already worked the steps several years ago, so they're not willing to go back to the beginning. And they've already done a fourth step, so they're not willing to do another one. And they've already done this, and they give me the whole laundry list of what they're not willing to do. I don't give those people much credibility, and I don't give those people much of my time. Don't tell me what you're not going to do. Show me what you are going to do. Then you are ready to take certain steps. It's so easy to put such low ceilings on our life by telling ourselves and others what we're not going to do. Don't tell me what you're not going to do. Show me what you are going to do. Show me what you can do. Show me. There's a famous football coach from Chicago, very famous guy, and he said, what you're doing is screaming so loudly, I cannot hear what you're saying. What you're doing is screaming so loudly, I cannot hear what you're saying. Isn't that brilliant? At some of these, we balk. What does balk mean? It means to hesitate. We thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we could not. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil until we let go, absolutely. This is very black and white, boys and girls. I'm either in recovery or I'm in the disease. There's no middle ground. I'm either in recovery or I'm in the disease, and there is no middle ground. Isn't that something? So I have to be fearless and thorough. What is the word that's missing from that fearless and thorough? Perfect. The word that's missing is perfect. The only step that I have to work perfectly is step number one. Beyond step number one, I don't have to go for perfect. I can just go for excellent. Now, I'm going to do the best I can to do it as well as any human being can. But fearless and thorough, and he left out the word perfect. Okay. Remember that we deal with alcohol, cunning, baffling, powerful, without help. It is too much for us, but that one is God. But there is I'm sorry, I'm way ahead of myself. But there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. Very, very important that I turn to God here instead of trying to turn to things human. Money, fame, poverty, being white, being black, being a Native American, being Hispanic. It won't cure me. It won't deter the disease. It won't encourage the disease. It's a non-factor. Tall, short, whatever it is you are, blonde, redhead, black hair, brown hair, doesn't matter. It does not matter. This disease does not care who it affects. But the one thing we all have in common is the disease, and we have the solution in common. And the solution is a spiritual awakening as the result of the step. Half measures availed us nothing. And the first time that I read that, or the first time I heard it read, I thought half measures would avail us half a recovery. You know, if love is a reed, then recovery is a vending machine. I know that sounds strange, but bear with me here for just a minute. When you go to a vending machine and you want some pop, or you want an ice cream bar, or you want water, whatever the heck it is you want. Let's just say, for example, that the product that you desire costs $2. And you put in $1.99. What are you going to get out of that machine? Nothing. You'd be lucky to get your $1.99 back. You're either in or you're not. You're either doing it or you're not. That's the key, and that's what makes it challenging, and yet that's what makes it simple. We asked his protection and care with complete abandon. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. We're not going to read the 12 steps. What we're going to do is we're going to go to page 263 in the 4th edition, 263, and I'm going to read to you what the 6 steps of the Oxford group were at the time. Number 1, complete deflation. Number 2, dependence and guidance from a higher power. Number 3, moral inventory. Number 4, confession. Number 5, restitution. And number 6, continued work with other alcoholics. And there were the 4 absolutes of the Oxford group: absolute honesty, absolute purity, absolute unselfishness, and absolute love. And this is where our 12 steps emanated from, was the 6-step program that was being used in the Oxford group. Bill did not set out to write 12 steps. He set out to close some of the loopholes that these alcoholics were jumping through. And when he saw that there were 12, he was very pleased, because 12 is a very significant number in the Bible, and 12 is a very significant number in other areas as well. So it pleased him very much that there were 12 steps. Let's go to page 60. Many of us exclaimed, "What an order! I can't go through with it." Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. What are the principles? They're the steps. We are not saints. The point is that we are willing to grow along spiritual lines. The principles we have set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. And one of the things I see in program is people are paralyzed, because if they can't do it perfectly, they don't want to do it at all. And that will kill me. It will kill me. Forget about perfection. Just do a really good job. Our description of the alcoholic, that is the doctor's opinion, Bill's story, there is a solution, and more about alcoholism. The chapter to the agnostic, chapter 4, we agnostics. Notice he doesn't say you agnostics or those agnostics or to the agnostics. He titles the chapter We Agnostics, because so many of us have pockets of agnosticism that are holding us back. And our personal adventures before and after made clear 3 pertinent ideas. A, that we were alcoholic and could not manage our own life. What does that mean? It means I have an allergy of the body and a twist of the mind that sets me apart from the normal temperate eater. B, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. Now I'm going to mention some names, because I want to illustrate my point, that no human power could have relieved my compulsive overeating. Money won't do it. Fame won't do it. Fortune won't do it. Poverty won't do it. Whether you come from Yale or jail, whether you come from Park Avenue or a park or under a park bench, it doesn't make one bit of difference. You are what you are and who you are, and that's just the way it goes. John Candy, Karen Carpenter, Fatty Arbuckle, President William Howard Taft, Chris Farley, all these and many others, Mama Cass Elliot. If you don't know who these people are, Karen Carpenter and all these people, look them up on Google and you'll find that they were people that were at the top of their game. And this disease came into their lives and took them out. Their money, their fame, their success could not slow down the progress and the fatal nature of this disease. So it doesn't matter who you are or what you are. If you are a compulsive overeater, you have one of two choices. Either treat the illness with a spiritual awakening as a result of the steps, or the illness will kill you. Those are your choices. James Gandolfini, same thing. There's others too. William Howard Taft was so large, and when he became president of the United States, he could not fit in the bathtub that was provided at the White House. He had to pay his own money to have that bathtub ripped out and have his own bathtub from Ohio brought out so he could get his rear end in there. Otherwise, he couldn't take the bath. Mama Cass Elliot, John Candy, Chris Farley, Karen Carpenter, these were all highly successful people, and yet the disease killed them. That God could and would if he were sought. What kind of God do you have in your head? Do you have one that'll be there for you? I hope so. If you don't, fire that God and get a new one. Fire that God and get a new one. You deserve, this is the one life you have. This is not a dress rehearsal. This is not some rehearsal. This is life. This is it. You will never get this day back again. God, when you walk to him, he runs to you. I've seen it a million times in my life. I've seen it in the lives of other people. I walk to God, he'll run to me. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Being convinced, we were at step 3, which is that we decided to turn our will and our life over to God as we understood him. Just what do we mean by that and what do we do? What is our will in our life? Our will is our thinking and our life is our action. So I'm going to be turning my thinking, my thoughts, and my actions over to God. The first requirement is that we be convinced that any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. On that basis, we're going to describe now the character defect of selfishness. And selfishness by many is misunderstood. Selfishness is not, I want everything for myself. That's part of it. But selfishness is the script that you have in your head that everybody must stick to. The script. You have to divorce yourself from a script. And this is what we're talking about here. On that basis, we're almost always in collision with something or somebody, even though our motives are good. The road to hell is paved with good intentions, isn't it? Most people try to live by self-propulsion. Each person is like an actor who wants to run the whole show, is forever trying to arrange the lights, the ballet, the scenery, and the rest of the players in his own way. If his arrangements would only stay put, if only people would do as he wished, the show would be great. If everybody would just do what I want them to do, then everything would be fine. Not really. Everybody, including himself, would be pleased. Life would be wonderful. Trying to make these arrangements, our actor may sometimes be quite virtuous. He may be kind, considerate, patient, generous, even modest and self-sacrificing. On the other hand, he may be mean, egotistical, selfish, and dishonest. But as with most humans, he is more likely to have varied traits. So we get convinced that my script, my way of doing things is the very best way. And what usually happens, the show doesn't come off very well. Now we're going to describe the defect of self-seeking. Self-seeking is the action that I take to get people to stick to my script. Let's see what it says together. He begins to think life doesn't treat him right. He decides to exert himself more. He becomes on the next occasion still more demanding or gracious, as the case may be. Still, the play does not suit him. Admitting he may be somewhat at fault, he is sure that other people are more to blame. He becomes angry, indignant, self-pitying. What is his basic trouble? Is he not really a self-seeker? There's that word. Self-seeking means I seek self. I seek what I want. I'm trying to manipulate you. I'm trying to manipulate others into doing my script. I seek self. I seek self-will. What is he, okay, when trying to be kind, is he not a victim of the delusion? What's a delusion? It's like a mirage. It's something that appears real, but is definitely not real. That he can wrest satisfaction and happiness out of this world if he only manages well. Is it not evident to the rest of the players that these are the things he wants, and do not his actions make each of them wish to retaliate, snatching all they can get out of the show? Is he not, even in his best moments, a producer of confusion rather than harmony? In other words, the more I put my hands on things, the worse things get. I only think that my way is best. I only think that if everybody would stick to my script, everything would be okay. I have a daughter. She lives in Brooklyn, New York. She lives in Crown Heights or Crown Point. I think it's Crown Heights, actually, in New York, in Brooklyn. She's 26 years old. You're free to call her and tell her how you think she should live her life. Tell her what she should do about this and tell her what she can go do about that. You'll hear some words that you don't want to hear before she hangs up on you, and that'll be the end of a very, very short conversation. You're welcome to try. I have script issues that I think she should address right away. Just ask me. I'll tell you what she should be doing. I know exactly what she should be doing. And she's not doing any of those things. But you're free to tell her. You're free to, let her know what you think. But you're going to be very shocked at how short that conversation is going to be. And you're going to hear some words that you only hear on a golf course. Okay, now let's continue. We're at the bottom of 61. We've covered selfish and we've covered self-seeking. Now we're going to talk about that ego, that self-centered ego that thinks I am the piece of garbage that the whole world should revolve around, or I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread. I don't know how to look at you unless I'm in program. When I came to program, I either was better than you or I looked up to you as you were better than me. Now I have the ability, with God's help, to look at you as a fellow human being. But let's take a look at the self-centered person who's not in recovery. Bottom of 61. Our actor is self-centered, egocentric, as people like to call it nowadays. He is like the retired businessman who lolls in the Florida sunshine in the winter, complaining of the sad state of the nation, the minister who sighs over the sins of the 20th century, politicians and reformers who are sure all would be utopia if the rest of the world would only behave, if everybody would just behave, the outlaw safecracker who thinks society has wronged him, and the alcoholic who has lost all and is locked up. Whatever our protestations are not motivated for ourselves, our commitments, our self-pity. And that's true to a great degree in all of us. We just know we're the best. We know that we have the right idea. It's just so hard to convince others, and that's where we get frustrated with them. And what I have to understand is I don't have the right idea. I'm not the smartest person in the world. I don't know what's best for me. I don't know what's best for you. I don't know what's best for anyone. The only thing I know that's best for me is to work this program. And if I work this program, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be okay. If I don't work this program, I'm going to be in a lot of trouble. Selfishness, self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our troubles, driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity. We step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate. Sometimes they hurt us seemingly without provocation. But we invariably find that at some time in the past, we have made decisions based on self, which later placed us in a position to be hurt. So now we're starting to get to it, that we are not the be all and the end all. And when we try to manipulate everybody around us, we try to get people to do our script, they're going to retaliate, and it's going to create pain and suffering for me, pain and suffering for you also. So our troubles, we think, are basically of our own making. They arise out of ourselves, and the alcoholic is an extreme example of self-will run riot, though he usually doesn't think so. Above everything, we alcoholics must be rid of this selfishness script. We must, or it kills us. God makes that possible. We have been tantruming with a knife and a fork. We have been tantruming by shoving food in our mouth because people were not sticking to our script. We have been throwing a temper tantrum for years and years and years. And these temper tantrums, the only way I'm going to stop doing them is to work the steps, because it's quite apparent to me that I know best and that I'm the smartest, and that if you stick to my script, everything will be okay. And then it becomes apparent to me that that idea is phony. That idea is wrong, incorrect, false. That idea is not going to serve me. So now we're on page 62, and there often seems no way of getting rid of self without entirely getting rid of self without his aid. Many of us have had moral and philosophical convictions galore, but we could not live up to them, even though we would have liked to. Neither could we reduce our self-centeredness much by wishing or trying on our own willpower. We had to have God's help. I have to have God's help. I can't do this on my own. I just can't do it on my own. I've tried. We as Western cultured people are given instructions when we're little kids that we can do this on our own. We don't need help. We can pull ourselves up by the bootstraps. We can discipline ourselves. We can do whatever it is, but we can do everything ourselves. And here we are in OA giving you the idea that that is completely wrong. It is completely erroneous. I cannot do this on my own. I will never be able to do it on my own, and I shouldn't be able to do it on my own. I need God's help. This is the how and the why of it, bottom of 62. First, we had to quit playing God. It didn't work. Next, we decided that hereafter in this drama of life, God was going to be our director. The director is the head of the show. He is the principal. We are his agents. That means that if I'm the agent, I have a fiduciary duty. There's a fun word to say, fiduciary. I have a fiduciary duty to put the needs of my client above my own. And that means I'm here to serve God above what I think I need. God will determine what I need. I'm here to be of service to God. He is the principal. We are his agents. He is the father, and we are his children. And there are some of you right now that are saying, my father was a putz. You didn't know my father. He was a putz. I understand, but this is your heavenly father, the perfect father, the father who loves you beyond measure, who would never let any harm come to you if he could help it, who loves you. He is the perfect father. Most good ideas are simple, and this concept was the keystone, the new and triumphant arch to which we passed to freedom. Top of 63, the third step promises. When we sincerely took such a position, what position? The position that God is in charge and that we are not. All sorts of remarkable things followed. We had a new employer. Notice that some of these words are capitalized because he's talking about God. Being all powerful, he provided what we needed if we kept close to him and performed his work well. Established on such a footing, we became less and less interested in our motives. in ourselves, not our motives, I'm sorry. We became less and less interested in ourselves, our little plans and designs. More and more, we became interested in seeing what we could contribute to life. And that's so foreign to me. I am by my nature a taker, and I convince myself always that I deserve to take, and I deserve to steal, and I deserve to lie, because after all, I don't have as much as you, and nobody left me an inheritance, and nobody this, and nobody that. And you know what the truth is? I am no more deserving of anything than the next person. I am no less or no more deserving of anything, and I have to contribute to life. And that's so foreign to my nature, but I have to do it. As we felt new power flow in, as we enjoyed peace of mind, as we discovered we could face life successfully, as we became conscious of His presence is God. We begin to lose our fear of today, tomorrow, and the hereafter. We were reborn. I could talk for 2 hours on just that sentence. We were reborn. It's a 3-word sentence. In any way, every way that a human being can be reborn, I have been reborn. I am not the person that I was in the disease. I find myself being honest. I find myself being who God wants me to be. I find myself saying yes when I mean yes and no when I mean no. I find myself fearless in dealing with people. I don't have to live in that shame anymore, that guilt and shame and remorse. I don't have to live like that anymore. I don't have to worry that I told this one a lie and I told the other one a different lie. I told this one I'm a Republican and this one I'm a Democrat, and now they're at the same party. What am I going to do if they compare notes? I don't have to live that way anymore. I can be honest with myself and honest with others. And when I live that way, I don't eat the way I used to. I don't spend time obsessing about what lie did I tell this one, or what lie did I tell that one, and what lie do I have going with this person, and what lie do I have going with that person. I don't have to worry about it anymore. All I have to do is live my life, and I'll be just fine. Here is step 3. And people asked me this morning about working the steps quickly. Did you see in this big book any written assignments on step 3? Because I did not. Did you see anything complicated about step 3? Because I did not. Now we're going to take the step. And we're going to see how simple and easy it is. There's nothing to write. There's nothing to obsess about or perseverate on. All it is the saying of a prayer and an agreement to do 4 through 12 every day for the rest of my life. That's all it is. Nothing more, nothing less. I'm not turning anything over to anybody in step 3. I do that in 4 through 12. We were now at step 3. Many of us said to our Maker as we understood Him, God, if you want to, you can join me. You don't have to even unmute. If you want to, you're free to join me. God, I offer myself to Thee, to build with me and to do with me as Thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do Thy will. Take away my difficulties, and victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of Thy power, Thy love, and Thy way of life. May I do Thy will always. We thought well before taking this step, making sure we were ready, that we could at last abandon ourselves utterly to Him. That's all it is. There's no reason to overcomplicate it. Let's go to the 3rd step prayer again, and let's put some other spin on it, some other words, not a spin, but words, so that it makes it a little more palatable for some. God, I offer myself to You to build with me and to do with me as You would have me. Relieve me of my defects of character, that I may better do Your will. Take away my defects of character, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help. Of Thy power, Thy love, and Thy way of life, may I do Thy will always. That's all it is. You're asking him to take away the defects of character. But in order to have them taken away, the first thing we need to do is we need to see on paper in step 4 what these defects of character have done to us, how these defects of character have manifested themselves in our lives. Very, very simple. I'm here to try and demystify these steps for you. There's nothing to write in step 3. There's nothing. It's a very simple, straightforward prayer. And all it is now I'm agreeing to do 4 through 12. That's all it is, folks. It's nothing more and nothing less. We found it very desirable to take this spiritual step with an understanding person, such as our wife, best friend, or spiritual advisor. But it is better to meet God alone than with one who might misunderstand. The wording was, of course, quite optional, so long as we expressed the idea, voicing it without reservation. This was only a beginning. Step 3 is going to be referred to as a decision and a beginning. Though if honestly and humbly made, in effect, sometimes a very great one was felt at once. Next, not in a week, not in a month, not in 6 days, 4 days. Next, we launched on a course of vigorous action. So you asked me about working the steps quickly. What does it say? It says next. It doesn't say in a week or 3 days. It says next. This is the first. Next, we launched out on a course of vigorous action, the first step of which is a personal house cleaning. Why does it say the first step if this is the 4th step? Because this is the first of the action steps. And this is the first step in the inventory process. The inventory process is really 4 through 9. Top of 64, which many of us have never attempted. Though our decision, did I read that? Which is a personal house cleaning? Yeah, which many of us have never attempted. Though our decision, step 3 is a decision, was a vital and crucial step, it could have little permanent effect unless at once, there's your time frame again. Did it say in a week? Does it say in 6 days, 5 days? It says at once. So the big book is very clear. Get on this and do it quickly. And there's no reason on God's earth to drag this out, to protract it for no reason. They have little permanent effect unless at once followed by a strenuous effort to face and be rid of the things in ourselves which have been blocking us. Our liquor was but a symptom, so we had to get down to causes and conditions. The liquor was but a symptom. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to uncover, discover, and discard. Uncover the things that have been blocking us, the manifestations of these defects. Discover. What are we going to discover? We're going to discover patterns about ourselves. For some people, a lot of their stuff comes from, what do others think of me? Well, the answer to that question is nothing most of the time, but we're very concerned about what others are thinking about us. And most of the time, they're not. And in other patterns, everything has to do with sex, the pursuit of sex. In other people, it's about money, money, money. It's that money grab. And anybody that stands between me and my money is going to feel my wrath. And in other things, it could be with other people, it could be other things. But for most people, we're going to uncover, discover, and discard. Uncover the defects. The defects are not, there's not 82 of them. Here's the defects. You don't have to go make a list of them. Here they are. Selfish, self-seeking, fear, anger, dishonesty. Those are the only defects of character. The behaviors of being late for work or yelling at your husband or yelling at your wife, these are manifestations of behaviors that come from the defects of character. You don't have to make a list of 82 defects of character. Here are the defects of character: selfish, dishonest, fear, resentment, self-seeking. And in 10, they don't even have self-seeking. In 10, there's just 4 defects of character. So there's 5 defects of character for step 4. 5, not 82, not 73, not 66, 5. And all these other behaviors stem from these defects of character. Okay, therefore we started on a personal inventory. This was step 4. A business which takes no regular inventory usually goes broke. Taking a commercial inventory is a fact-finding and fact-facing process. It is an effort to discover the truth about the stock in trade. One object is to disclose damaged or unsaleable goods, to get rid of them promptly and without regret. If the owner of the business is to be successful, he cannot fool himself about values. In other words, how is that anger working for me? How is that resentment against so-and-so working for me? How is that fear working for me? I've been hanging on to some of these resentments and fears for a very long time. The reason is a resentment, it gives me the ability to not focus on me. It gives me the ability to blame someone else. Why do you think I love a good resentment? Oh, I love a good resentment. And I know people, and I was one of them until this program. I was going to take certain resentments with me to the grave. And I was going to take that resentment with me, and I was going to feed it and nurture it and tell other people about it. Why? Because it gives me the ability to abdicate responsibility, and I can blame you, and I can justify the most errant nonsense imaginable, eating and other behaviors, and I can blame you, and I can be absolved from any responsibility. And that's why I love a good resentment. And you know, a resentment does not have fidelity. What is fidelity? It's truth and consistency. And if you have a recording on your television, or you have a record, oh, shows my age, a record, my God. But if you have a song on your phone or something, and you play that song, it's going to be the same every time. But when I play that resentment over and over and over again in my head, I change it every time just a little bit. And I make my part a little more angelic, my part a little more honest and forthright and above board, and your part more dastardly, more nefarious. My part, I'm as innocent as the driven snow, and you came along and you did me dirt. But every time I play that resentment, I change it just a little bit so that that becomes apparent to me that you're just evil and you came and did me dirt. The reality is, as we're going to find out on page 67, is I probably had a part in that resentment. I'm probably not telling myself the truth. And so I have to look at my part in these things in the 4th column of the resentment inventory. And that's what I need to do, is take a look at my part. And what it does is it starts to break down some of these phony baloney mirages that I have been hanging on to my entire life. And I have to understand that just because I think something doesn't make it true. Sometimes the things that I think and the things that I believe are so far away from the truth that it's not even funny. And sometimes when I look at these resentments, what comes to mind is I have been believing lies for a very, very long time. We need to take a 5-minute break because I got to go potty. I'm doing the potty dance under here. I'll be back in 5 minutes. Don't go away. 5 minutes.
Okay. Bueno, como escucharon, vamos a tomar estos 5 minutos para, we're going to take these 5 minutes to talk a little bit about the 7th tradition for our group. There is a solution, hay una solución. We have several ways of contributing. PayPal is one of them. We have, since we are in all Latin America, there are places in Mexico, Republic Dominican as a transfer. And as you can see in the screen right now, There is the information of the different ways we can contribute. Uh, there is all the contributions are voluntary, and they're not, of course, they're not. We sustain ourselves towards our own contribution, and this meeting is being possible thanks to the contribution of the members of the groups who contribute to the meetings, so we can have translators and then we can have the technology that we need to keep us going. Um, the PayPal link is up here, and that's an easy way if you are in the United States. So somebody's asking what is our BINMO. I'm sorry, but I may be older than you guys, but I don't know what a BINMO is. So if you can, Charles, if you can unmute and ask or explain to us, we'll probably, there's maybe somebody of the servers who has that.
Okay, I'm back. Venmo is just a way of transferring funds. That's all it is. It's a very simple way of transferring money from one bank account to another. That's all it is.
Oh, okay. Thank you. All right. Go ahead, Harlem. Thank you.
Okay, we're ready to roll. So these resentments that I have do not tell the truth. And over time, I keep changing it just a little bit, and I seek out others to reinforce my lies. And what happens is I end up believing that lie. Now let's take a look for just a second at where resentments come from. Where does resentment come from? Where does fear come from? It comes from a threat, either a real threat or a supposed threat, to one or more of our basic instincts of life. What are the basic instincts of life? They are hardwired into us by God, and they are integral for the survival, not only for us as individuals, but they are survival methods for mankind as a whole. There are three instincts of life, and whether it's in the here and now or the ambitions for the future. In other words, the social instinct is the first instinct, is the social instinct. We all want to be liked. If I said right now, all right, everybody, there's 142 of us. Come on over to my house and we're going to have a party. And everybody is invited except Fred. Fred, you are not invited. We do not want you to come to my party. We don't want to hang with you. That would hurt Fred and insult Fred, and that would hurt Fred's feelings deeply. Even if Fred had no intention of coming to the party, he still wants to be included. Is that clear? We all have that instinct of the social instinct, or my ambitions for the future. Maybe I want to get in with a new group of friends, but I feel like Sam or Mike or Marilyn or Cindy, they're blocking me from it, and I'm going to resent them for doing so. Okay, there's the social instinct. And underneath the social instinct is a little subheading, and that subheading in the social instinct is self-esteem. Self-esteem is more often reflective. What does that mean, reflective? It's not what I think of myself, it's what I think you think of me most of the time. What do I think you think of me? There's 142 of you here right now, and if you guys all think that I'm a pretty good guy, I'm going to think I'm a pretty good guy. But if most of you don't think I'm a pretty good guy, it'll rattle me a little bit. So not only what I have now, but my ambition for the future in that area. So the first instinct is the social instinct. The second instinct is security, pocketbook, money, job, money. What I have now or my ambition for the future. If something threatens my money, it's going to get my dander up, or my ambition for the future. Underneath the subheading of security is emotional security. If you upset my emotional security or my ambition for the future, it's going to upset me very much. The third subheading under the security instinct is personal security. We all have an instinct to fight or flee when we're confronted with physical danger. If we perceive physical danger, we have been hardwired by God to either fight or flee to try to save our own lives. Very, very important that we see that. And the third instinct is the sex instinct. And the sex instinct does not have any subheadings. What do I have in this area now, or what are my ambitions for the future? 11 years ago, my wife started an affair with another man. She started seeing this other man that she fell in love with, and she was very, very attracted to him. And in May of 2010, 11 years ago, my wife came home. It was a Sunday, and she said, I want a divorce. She said, I don't want to be in this marriage anymore. We had been married at that time 17 and a half years. She fell in love with somebody else, and he made a lot more money than I did, which she said was a huge factor. But she didn't want to keep struggling with the business. The business was going downhill at that time. She didn't want to struggle with it. She fell in love with this guy, and that was, there was really no talking her out of it. I tried to reason with her. I tried to say, let's not get divorced and blah, blah, blah. There was no talking to her at that point, and we divorced 11 years ago. So that was a pretty upsetting thing because he was the one that ended up with my wife, and that'll do massive damage to your ego. Let me tell you that right now. That'll definitely put a dink in the old dunker. But the bottom line is that in the sex instinct, it's not only what I have now, but it's my ambition for the future. So those are very, very important things. Just to review the three basic instincts of life: social, security, and sex. The social is self-explanatory. The security is pocketbook, emotional security, whatever. And then the sex is very self-explanatory too. Social, security, and sex. Okay, let's continue. We're on page 64. We did exactly the same thing. What time do we go to now? We go till, so we do a 2-hour session. I think we go till 3 La Crosse time. In La Crosse, Wisconsin time, it is now 2 o'clock. Oh, okay. Anyway, we did exactly the same thing with our lives. We took stock honestly. First, we searched out the flaws in our makeup which caused our failure. Notice that there's no instruction here to inventory your character assets. I see people spending weeks and weeks in their 4th step inventorying their character assets. There is nothing in this big book that says to do that. We are inventorying the things which caused our failure, not the things that cause our success. Being convinced that self manifested in various ways was what had defeated us, we considered its common manifestations. Resentment is the #1 offender. It destroys more alcoholics than anything else. From its stem all forms of spiritual disease. For we have been not only mentally and physically ill. I know how to read. I'm just tired. I've been talking all day. But we have been spiritually sick. When the spiritual malady is overcome, we straighten out mentally and physically. In dealing with resentments, we set them on paper. We listed people, institutions, or principles with whom we were angry. We asked ourselves why we were angry. In most cases, it was found that our self-esteem, our pocketbooks, our ambitions, our personal relationships, including sex, were hurt or threatened. So we were sore, we were burned up. There's going to be 4 columns for resentment, 4 columns for fear, 5 columns for sex. 4, 4, and 5. 4 for resentment, 4 for fear, and 4 for sex. Very, very simple. Okay, here's what we're going to do. Column 1. I'm going to say this 3 times. 3 times. Column 1. Who or what do you resent? It's not always going to be a who. I had a big resentment against the expression blood is thicker than water. because I have no blood relatives. So every time somebody said blood is thicker than water, I was left out. I had a resentment against the expression, for every pot, there's a lid, because I couldn't seem to find anybody in my life that was, a pot to my lid or a lid to my pot. I went on my first date. I was 35 years old. I still struggle in that area. I hate being single. I despise it. But I'm single right now. What can I do? I can just go on living my life. I hate it. But that's what the reality of the situation is. So column number 1, who or what do you resent? Column 2, in 19 words or less. Why 19? Because the examples don't ever give you 19 words or more. They give you 19 words or less. Don't write a book on why you hate Joe. That's not helping anybody. 19 words or less. Why do you resent this person or institution? Column 3, what basic instinct or instincts are affected? Column 4, what part did you play, if any? And what character defects were brought to the surface in you that caused you to do this? I'm going to say it 2 more times. Column 1, who or what do you resent? Column 2, why do you resent them? 19 words or less, please. Column 3, what basic instinct or instincts are affected? Column 4, what did you do to bring this about, if anything? And what character defects were brought to the surface? Last time. Column 1, who or what do you resent? Column 2, why do you resent them? 19 words or less, please. Column 3, what basic instinct or instincts are involved? Column 4, what did you do, if anything, to bring this about? And what character defects in you were brought to the surface? Hand to God. I did a 5th step about 2-3 years ago with a young man, and he had all the 4th column, what his wife did to bring the resentment about, what her character defects were. And if I wasn't so aggravated that I laughed my butt off. So I sent him back and I says, you got to do your inventory, not hers. And I never heard from him again, ever. But he had his wife's inventory all laid out. It was a thing of beauty. But anyway, okay, fine. Enough of that. Let's go to the top of page 65. We're only going to do one example. We don't have time. On our grudge list, we set opposite each name our injuries. Was it our self-esteem, our security, our ambitions, our personal or sex relations which had been interfered with? We were usually as definite as this example. I'm resentful at Mr. Brown. Why? His attention to my wife affects my sex relations, self-esteem, fear. He told my wife of my mistress, sex relations, self-esteem, fear. Brown may get my job at the office, security, pocketbook, self-esteem, fear. We don't have time to do the rest of them. Let's skip down. We went back through our lives. Nothing counted but thoroughness and honesty. When we were finished, we considered it carefully. The first thing apparent was this world and its people were often quite wrong. To conclude that others were wrong was as far as most of us ever got. The usual outcome was that people continued to wrong us and we stayed sore at ourselves. Sorry, I read that wrong. The usual outcome was that people continued to wrong us and we stayed sore. Sometimes it was remorse and then we were sore at ourselves. But the more we fought and tried to have our own way, the worse matters got. As in war, the victor only seemed to win. Our moments of triumph were short-lived. It is plain that a life which includes deep resentment leads only to futility and unhappiness. To the precise extent that we permit these, do we squander the hours that might have been worthwhile. But with the alcoholic whose hope is the maintenance and growth of a spiritual experience, this business of resentment is infinitely grave. We found that it is fatal. Why is it fatal? Because it can drive me back into the food. For when harboring such feelings, we shut ourselves off from the sunlight of the spirit. The insanity of alcohol returns and we drink again. And with us, to drink is to die. Very, very important stuff. Very important. Okay. Very, very critical. If we were to live, we had to be free of anger. The grouch and the brainstorm were not for us. The grouch is simply someone that's always angry, and the brainstorm is someone who's not always angry, but when they get angry, look out. So the word brainstorm is used completely differently 100 years ago than it was now. The brainstorm was somebody who was only angry once in a while, but when he or she gets angry, look out. Okay. They may be the dubious luxury of normal men, but for alcoholics, these things are poison. We turned back to the list, for it held the key to the future. We were prepared to look at it from an entirely different angle. We began to see that the world and its people really dominated us. In that state, the wrongdoings of others, fancied or real, had power to actually kill. How could we escape? We saw that these resentments must be mastered, but how? We could not wish them away any more than alcohol. This was our course. We realized that the people who wronged us were perhaps spiritually sick, though we did not like their symptoms and the way these disturbed us. They, like ourselves, were sick too. We asked God to help us show them the same tolerance, pity, and patience that we would cheerfully grant a sick friend. When a person offended, we said to ourselves, this is a sick man. How can I be helpful to him? God, save me from being angry, thy will be done. And this is commonly referred to as the sick man's prayer. Very, very important. I use this prayer 20 times a day. This is something I need to lean on very, very much because I live in a world of people and those people are going to anger me sometimes. I'm human. We avoid retaliation or argument. We wouldn't treat sick people that way. If we do, we destroy our chance of being helpful. We cannot be helpful to all people, but at least God will show us how to take a kindly and tolerant view of each and every one. Referring to our list again, this will be the fourth column of the resentment inventory. The fourth column of the resentment inventory is what is your part and what character defects within you were brought to the surface in this resentment against whomever. Putting out of our minds the wrongs others had done, we resolutely looked for our own mistakes. Boy, that's the first time I did that, that's for sure. Where had we been selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, and frightened? Those are the defects. Selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, frightened. The reason that resentment is not named here is it's a resentment inventory. Why name resentment? You're not going to put resentments down. And in the fear inventory, if there's a resentment, it goes in the resentment inventory, not the fear inventory. Okay. Though a situation had not been entirely our fault, we tried to disregard the other person involved entirely. Where were we to blame? The inventory was ours, not the other man's. When we saw our faults, we listed them. We placed them before us in black and white. We admitted our wrongs honestly and were willing to set these matters straight. Now, before we move to the fear inventory, I'm going to say two things. Number one, we're going to run over time. There's no way I can finish what I need to finish in 40 minutes. We're going to run over time. If you need to go in 40 minutes, I completely understand, but I am going to have to run over time. Number two, I know that some of you, because there's 139 of us, some of you have been physically abused by someone else, a spouse, a parent, somebody. Some of you have been raped. Some of you have been abandoned. Some of you have had horrible injustices done to you by someone, and you resent this person or people for doing this to you. And normally what happens is it goes to another resentment. Maybe your father or maybe your mother abused you in some way, so you resent the other parent. Maybe they weren't around, whatever. Where were they? They didn't protect you, so on and so forth. Okay, fine. Maybe you don't have a part in that. Just put DNA does not apply. But you shouldn't have more than a couple of those. You really shouldn't. If you're putting DNA does not apply or doesn't apply, whatever you want to put down to indicate that to you, and you're putting it down more than once or twice, you're probably overusing it. That's why you need a sponsor. But if you've had something happen to you, like a rape or physical abuse or something like that, you have no part in that, especially if you were a child, especially if you were a kid. And the bottom line is that you don't have to say, here's what I did, but we have to forgive. It's time to forgive. I know a little bit about injustice. Remember who my father was, and I told you his story. I know a little bit about that. But at some point, I have to give retribution to God. At some point, I have to give retribution to God Almighty, because I can't carry this around anymore. I can't carry this anger around with me and stay out of the food. I'm going to need God's help. And that's very important. Okay. So we have 4 columns for resentment, 4 columns for fear. The fear inventory is, I'm going to say this 3 times. The first column is who or what do you fear? Second column, why do you fear it in 19 words or less? Third column is what basic instinct or instincts are affected. Fourth column is what's your part in this fear and what defects of character were brought to the surface. If there's a resentment in connection with that fear, it goes in the resentment inventory. I'm going to say it 2 more times. First column of the fear inventory, who or what do you fear? Column 2, why do you fear it? 19 words or less. Column 3, what basic instinct or instincts are affected? Column 4, what did you do to bring this fear around? What did you do to bring it about? And what character defects were brought to the surface? I'll say it 1 more time. Column 1 in the fear inventory, who or what do you fear? Column 2, why do you fear it? 19 words or less, please. Column 3, what basic instinct or instincts are affected? And column 4, what did you do to bring this about, and what character defects were brought to the surface? Those are the 4 columns for the fear inventory. Let's continue on the bottom of 67. Notice that the word fear is bracketed alongside the difficulties with Mr. Brown, Mrs. Jones, the employer, and the wife. This short word somehow touches about every aspect of our lives. It was an evil and corroding thread. The fabric of our existence was shot through with it. It set in motion trains of circumstances which brought us misfortune we felt we didn't deserve. But did not we ourselves set the ball rolling? Sometimes we think fear ought to be classed with stealing. It seems to cause more trouble. We reviewed our fears thoroughly. We put them on paper, even though we had no resentment in connection with them. We asked ourselves why we had them. Wasn't it because self-reliance failed us? Self-reliance was good as far as it went, but it didn't go far enough. Some of us once had great self-confidence, but it didn't fully solve the fear problem or any other. When it made us cocky, it was worse. Perhaps there's a better way. We think so, for we are now on a different basis, the basis of trusting and relying upon God. We trust infinite God rather than our finite selves. We are in the world to play the role He assigns, just to the extent that we do as we think He would have us and humbly rely on Him. Does He enable us to match calamity with serenity? I so love that sentence, calamity with serenity. Unbelievable poetry right there. The poetry of the big book is beautiful. Calamity with serenity. Prose that just paint a picture of God. Oh, I love it. We never apologize to anyone for depending upon our Creator. We can laugh at those who think spirituality the way of weakness. Paradoxically, it is the way of strength. The verdict of the ages is that faith means courage. All men of faith have courage. They trust their God. We never apologize for God. Instead, we let him demonstrate through us what he can do. If there's anything my life should illustrate for you and your life should illustrate for others, it's what God can do, what his omnipotence can do. Doctors have been pronouncing me dead from the time I was a little boy. I'm 67 years old. I'm here. I may drop dead tonight. I couldn't tell you. I don't know. I don't know what lies in front of me. None of us do. I don't know what 5 minutes from now is going to look like, let alone, whatever. I have no idea. But I know that I can go to God, and even though there were things I wish were different, I've had a good run. I did a good job. I had true happiness in abstinence. I stopped hating myself. I stopped hating God. I've come to peace with my mother and father. They've been gone a long time. I've come to peace with the world that I was born into. I'm no longer the butt of jokes. I'm no longer an object of ridicule when I go in public. Children used to laugh at me and point at me because I was so fat. No longer does that happen. And yes, I wish I could go back and do it all again, but different with what I know now. I wish I could do a lot of things differently than I did. But it's been a good life. I did better than some, not as good as others. But I like me. And my life works to one degree or another, it works. My bills are paid. I don't owe any man money. I have a mortgage, but other than a mortgage, I owe nothing to anybody. I paid cash for my car. I don't spend over my means. I don't spend over my head. And things could be worse. I walk 3 miles a day, 6 days a week. And in the afternoons, 5 days a week, I go to the Jewish Community Center and I walk in the pool for 1,000 yards because I have false knees and false hips. And I like to exercise my joints by bending them as far as I can. It helps me. I treat people well. I treat them with respect. It's been a good run. God has done a great job. He resurrected me. And I, in every sense of the word that a human being can be, am reborn. That promise of page 63, step 3, has come true. I am reborn. Maybe one day I'll be with somebody again. I hope so, but whether I do or not, it's God's will, not mine. And I hope to keep working this program. Let's continue. He can direct our attention to what he would have us be at once we commence to outgrow fear. Now, before we begin the sex inventory, let's examine some, but not maybe all, of the ways that people hurt each other in this area of sex. It doesn't matter what kind of sex you're talking about. It doesn't matter whether you prefer a same-sex partner or a heterosexual partner. It has nothing to do with that. Zero, nada, nothing. Nothing, zero. What it has to do with is, where are you selfish and where are you just thinking about yourself in terms of your sexual powers? Are you using them for something other than what they were intended for? And of course, when we do the sex inventory, what most people want to concentrate on first is cheating. And yes, I agree that for me, and I do not know what it's like for you, but I cannot be working the steps while I'm breaking the 10 commandments. It's just it's not congruent for me. And this is my opinion. It's not OA's opinion. It's not AA's opinion. It's just my opinion. God gave us the sex instinct so that we could use it to either recreate ourselves and or for enjoyment between adults. I'm not saying you have to have sex only to recreate yourself. You can use it for enjoyment, provided that the person is an adult that can say yes or no. That's my criteria for me, not for you. I'm not telling you what it should be. I'm just sharing what I think it should be for me. And that's important to do, to say that. Now, am I using my God-given sex powers for something other than what they were intended for? In other words, am I using it to manipulate another person? Am I using it to get my way? Am I using it to further my career? Maybe I'm having sex with somebody that I care nothing for. No enjoyment, no recreation. I'm using sex to further my career. That has nothing to do with enjoyment, and that has nothing to do with recreation. That's using another person. And if they start to develop feelings for me, I'm going to hurt them for nothing. Maybe I'm using my God-given sex powers because I want to try to manipulate somebody into doing something that I want them to do. Maybe I'm using my God-given sex powers to get even with another person. I had a relationship with Cindy, just for example, just to make something up. And Cindy dumps me, and her best friend is Mary. And I know that it would drive Cindy crazy if I had sex with Mary. So I go seduce Mary and have sex with her, knowing Cindy's going to find out about it. And I care nothing for Mary. I'm just using her as a tool to get even with another person. That's not what this is. That's not what God had intended, in my opinion. In my opinion. So these are some of the things that I have to look at. Maybe I'm withholding sex. Maybe I'm withholding affection until somebody comes around to my way of thinking. I'm a Cubs fan. Maybe my wife is a White Sox fan. And maybe I'm going to withhold sex. I'm going to withhold affection until she becomes a Cub fan. I just want her to do what I want her to do. That's another form of harm as well. Perhaps I am in the bedroom being very selfish. I'm not doing something that my partner has asked me to do on a number of occasions, and I need to give in every once in a while and do it. That's a form of harm too. Or maybe I'm making demands on them where they've told me they're really not comfortable doing a certain thing, but I keep making demands on them to do those things. These are some, but not all of the ways that we hurt each other in the sexual area. We're going to use 5 columns for the sex inventory. I'm going to say it 3 times. First column, who did you hurt? It will always be a who. Now, just because you had sex with somebody doesn't mean that they need to go on this inventory. Did you harm them in this way? Let's say you had a one-night stand. You understood it was going to be a one-night stand. They understood it was going to be a one-night stand. You enjoyed yourself. Hopefully, they enjoyed themselves. No harm done. That's fine. There's nothing to put down. This is not a list of people that you've had sex with, which for me would be very short. But it's not a list of people that you've had sex with. It's a list and it's an inventory of people that you've harmed in this way. Now, when I first came into OA, I had never had sex. I was 24 years old. I didn't go on my first date till I was 35. So I says, I don't have to do this. And my sponsor said, you'll use it for all of your relationships. Are they honest and above board, or are they manipulative? And I really learned a lot about myself. First column in the sex inventory, who did you hurt? Second column, 19 words or less, what did you do to them? Third column, what basic instinct or instincts are affected? Column 4, what defects of character within you cause you to harm them? And the 5th column, what should you have done instead? Column 1, who did you hurt? Column 2, what did you do to them? 19 words or less, please. Column 3, what basic instinct or instincts of life are affected. Column 4, what defects of character in you cause you to take this action. And column 5, what should you have done instead? Last time. Column 1, who did you hurt? Column 2, what did you do to them? 19 words or less. Column 3, what basic instinct or instincts of life are affected? Column 4, what defects of character within you cause you to harm these people or this person? And column 5, what should you have done instead? I hope you got it. Let's move on. Bottom of 68, excuse me. Now about sex. Most of us needed an overhauling there, but above all, we tried to be sensible on this question. It's so easy to get way off the track. Here we find human opinions running to extremes, absurd extremes perhaps. One set of voices cry that sex is a lust of our lower nature, a base necessity of procreation. Then we have the voices who cry for sex and more sex, who bewail the institution of marriage, who think that most of the troubles of the race are traceable to sex causes. They think we do not have enough of it, or that it isn't the right kind. They see its significance everywhere. One school would allow man no flavor for his fare, and the other would have us all on a straight pepper diet. In other words, some want no sex, some want lots of sex. That's what that means. We want to stay out of this controversy. We do not want to be the arbiter of anyone's sex conduct. We all have sex problems. We'd hardly be human if we didn't. What can we do about them? We reviewed our own conduct over the years past. Where had we been selfish, dishonest, or inconsiderate? Whom had we hurt? Did we unjustifiably arouse jealousy or suspicion or bitterness? Where were we at fault? What should we have done instead? We got this all down on paper and looked at it. In this way, we tried to shape a sane and sound ideal for our future sex life. We subjected each relation to this test. Was it selfish or not? We asked God to mold our ideals and help us live up to them. We remembered always that our sex powers were God-given and therefore good, neither to be used lightly or selfishly, nor to be despised and loathed. We have a sex ideal, and it's not about, I want this kind of girl and I want her to look like this, and that's not what we're talking about at all. It's what are you going to bring to the party? What did you learn? What did I learn? I learned that in my marriage, I wasn't really in love with the woman. I was in love with the idea that somebody wanted me. I married the first girl that came along that didn't say she just wanted to be friends. The first girl I ever dated, she didn't want to marry me. She just wanted to be friends after a while. And there was nothing I could do to turn her around. And then the second girl came along and she wanted to get married. I was in. For men, getting married is like a membership card to the human race. I was just like the other guys. I had a wife just like you guys did. I have a girl who loves me. I have a girl in my life just like you guys. It was like, for the first time in my life, finally getting a membership card to the human race. But I was not in love with this person. As a matter of fact, I was scared to death of her. She was always very angry and very enraged, and I didn't like it. And emotionally, I stood in the corner and I cowered. And I did whatever she wanted me to do, and I let her make every possible decision, not because I'm so wonderful, not because I'm so fantastic. I let her make every decision because I was hoping that way she wouldn't leave me. Well, I've been divorced 11 years, so we see how well that worked out. Our sex life was almost non-existent. I would say the last 10 years of our marriage, we were married 17 and a half years, we didn't touch one another. 10 years, we didn't touch one another. I'm not saying that my next one has to be like the last days of Caligula, but there should be some touching. I may be 67, but I'm not dead. I'm not dead by any stretch of the imagination. And through the miracle of chemistry, I'm still here. Well, that's another factor. And the other thing is I've learned along the way You can't treat the other person like your mommy. And that's what I did with my wife. I treated her more like my mommy. I treated her like a mom. She was not my mom. She was my wife, and I should have treated her as an equal, and I didn't. I treated her like a mom. And I've learned that the best thing I can do is bring a recovered adult into a relationship. A recovered adult has a much better chance of successfully being in a relationship than a dependent child, a dependent food addict who's active in his disease. These are some, but not all of the things that I've learned. I've learned a lot along the way. I don't have the time to go into the whole thing, but what I've basically learned is my sexual ideal is be an adult. If I have an opinion, say so. Doesn't mean I'm going to get my way. Doesn't mean I'm not going to get my way. Don't be afraid to speak your mind. Don't be afraid to be who you are. Don't just cower to somebody because they're female. Don't just hide in the corner because they're female and you're convinced that they could do better. And if you don't do what they say, they're going to run away. If they're destined to run away, let them go. That's easy to say. It's hard to do. I just experienced that in my last relationship. At some point, I had to give up the ship. This person did not want to be with me anymore, and it was a long distance kind of thing. She lived in Colorado, and at some point you have to give up the ship and say, okay, we've had this breakup conversation a million times. I'm going to let go of you and you're going to have to let go of me, and we're going to just go our separate ways. And it hurts. It's very painful. But you know what? I can do it one day at a time with God's help. So that's very important for me to realize. Let's continue. Bottom of 69. And then you have your sexual ideals. You have the things you've learned. I have a lot of weakness in the area of relationships. I didn't have a youth to learn how to kiss a girl, to learn sex, or to learn any of this stuff. I'm all of it's very new to me even now. And it's physically demanding on me. And I'm 67. It's hard, sometimes because of the performance that men have to do. It's difficult. It's challenging to that fear of performance, that fear of being on stage. It's very difficult. I don't have a problem doing the retreat, but I have a problem there. It's very tough. And this is one of the reasons my last relationship fell apart, was the bedroom stuff just wasn't good. It wasn't good. So all I can do is the best I can moving forward. That's all I can do. You dust yourself off, and you keep going. And hopefully I'll find someone that is more tolerant of my shortcomings or more okay with my shortcomings. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. I don't know. That's going to be up to God. Bottom of 69, whatever our ideal turns out to be, we must be willing to grow toward it. We must be willing to make amends where we have done harm, provided that we do not bring still more harm in so doing. In other words, we treat sex as we would any other problem. In meditation, we ask God what we should do about each specific matter. The right answer will come if we want it. God alone can judge our sex situation. Counsel with another person is often desirable, with other persons is often desirable, but we let God be the final judge. We realize that some people are as fanatical about sex as others are loose. We avoid hysterical thinking or advice. Suppose we fall short of the chosen ideal and stumble. Does this mean we are going to get drunk? Some people tell us so, but this is only a half truth. It depends on us and on our motives. If we are sorry for what we have done and have the honest desire to let God take us to better things, we believe we will be forgiven and we will have learned our lesson. If we are not sorry and our conduct continues to harm others, we are quite sure to drink. Amends doesn't mean we apologize. We have to change our behavior. We don't apologize to the Constitution. We amend the Constitution, and that means change. We are not theorizing. These are facts out of our experience. To sum up about sex, we earnestly pray for the right ideal for guidance in each questionable situation, for sanity and for the strength to do the right thing. If sex is very troublesome, we throw ourselves the harder into helping others. We think of their needs and work for them. This takes us out of ourselves. It quiets the imperious urge when to yield would mean heartache. If we have been thorough about our personal inventory, we have written down a lot. We have listed and analyzed our resentments. We have begun to comprehend their futility and their fatality. We have commenced to see their terrible destructiveness. We have begun to learn tolerance, patience, and goodwill toward all men, even our enemies, for we look on them as sick people. We have listed the people we have hurt by our conduct and are willing to straighten out the past if we can. In this book, you read again and again that faith did for us what we could not do for ourselves. We hope you are convinced now that God can remove whatever self-will has blocked you off from him. If you have already made a decision, step 3, and an inventory of your grosser handicaps, step 4, you have made a good beginning. In other words, this is not the be-all and the end-all. There is much work ahead of you. Keep doing it. This being so, you have swallowed and digested some big chunks of truth about yourself. Now, I'm going to keep going. If you have to leave, I completely understand, but I am not going to get finished if I don't. I don't know where the time went. I think I was yapping about some other stuff in Bill's story that I should have just passed through, but I wanted to bring the history about here. So it's 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. 3 p.m. is 1 p.m., 12 minutes. We're not going to finish in 12 minutes, but let's just get where we get. Step 5, they need to be informed and uninvolved. Informed means they know what we're after. They know the program, and uninvolved. Let's just say, for example, I am friends with Joe. Joe and I are very good friends, and you are Joe's brother. Are you an appropriate person to do the 5th step with? Absolutely not, because you're not going to be uninvolved. I am going to have resentments and things with Joe that you don't need to hear. They need to be uninvolved, and they need to be informed and uninvolved. There are a multitude of people. If you feel you want to do it with a clergyman, do it with a clergyman, psychologist, doctor, priest, minister, rabbi, whatever you feel you want to do, you just do whatever it is, as long as the person is helping you seek out patterns. As long as they're helping you seek out patterns. Bottom of 75. Bottom of 75. Returning home. We find a place where we can be quiet for an hour. Quiet, no phones, no nothing. Carefully reviewing what we have done. We thank God from the bottom of our heart that we know him better. Taking this book down from our shelf, we turn to the page which contains the 12 steps, page 59. Carefully reading the first 5 proposals, we ask if we have omitted anything, for we are building an arch through which we shall walk a free man at last. Is our work solid so far? Are the stones properly in place? Have we skimped on the cement put into the foundation? Have we tried to make mortar without sand? Top of 76, we're going to take step 6. If step 6 takes longer than 15 seconds, you're doing it wrong. If step 7 takes more than 20 seconds, you're doing it wrong. These are quick, fast steps. Top of 76. If we can answer to our satisfaction, we then look at step 6. We have emphasized willingness as being indispensable. Are we now ready to let God remove from us all the things which we have admitted are objectionable? Can he now take them all, every one? If we still cling to something we will not let go, we ask God to help us be willing. 20 seconds. You look at your inventory. Look at the destruction that your defects have caused you and others. Is that what you want to hang on to? I don't know. Maybe you do. Or do you want to let it go? Now we're ready for step 7. When ready, we say something like this: my Creator, I am not willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. Amen. We have now completed step 7. Anything difficult there? Anything complicated there? Step 8. We made a list of people we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them. Based on your 4th step, or anyone else that you've harmed that you'd have no resentment or fears, you should have a fear of running into them at the very least, but okay. Who did you hurt? What did you hurt? What happened? You don't have to write down all the details, just a list of the people or institutions that you've harmed. You know how to make a list. This shouldn't take days and days and days. It should take 20 minutes, 30 minutes tops. This is a very quick thing, step 8, if you get on it. There's no reason to protract this out. And I'm working on a woman told me a number of years ago, it took her a year to complete her 4th step. I said, well, were you abstinent the whole time? She said, oh no, I was eating when I started it. Of course I wasn't abstinent. Well, what's the point? What's the point? There is no point. Anyway, step 8, made a list of people we had harmed. Now, step 9. You're going to get ready to make direct amends to these people. And it's very, very important that you check with your sponsor before you go out and make amends. You can actually cause more harm than you originally caused. You can actually go out there and do more harm. Amends, face to face, eyeball to eyeball, whenever possible. Sit down with the person and make amends. And remember that we're not in the results business. We are not in the business of getting that person to like us. We are not in the business of teaching that person a lesson. We are not in the business of getting that person to confess all the dirty things they did to us. We are there to sweep off our side of the street. We are not there to get a result. We say to the person that we're here because we're cleaning up our lives. We admit what we did. We show contrition for what we did. Here's what I did to you. Be specific. If you owe them money, pay them back. If you can't pay them back all at once, start payments. Put a check in their hands. They're going to be a lot more interested in your show of amends than in your words of I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Put a check in their hands. Did you steal from them? Did you shoplift from their store? Did you lie to them? Admit what you did, say that you're sorry, and ask them, is there anything I can do to make this good? If you stole from them, try to assess as best you can the value of what you lifted from them and restitute them. This is not about apologizing. It's about making an amends to this person. Now, Dr. Bob was one of the co-founders of Alcoholics Anonymous, and we often get the impression that Bob met Bill and AA sprung out of their tushies. Nothing was further from the truth. Bill met Bob on Mother's Day, 1935, May 13th, 1935. But he didn't get sober till June the 10th. He wouldn't do his 9th step. Now, there's 4 impediments to God. What's an impediment? An impediment is something which slows or stops progress. And Sam Shoemaker taught the boys that there were 4 impediments, and he wrote a book called Twice Ministered. And the book by Sam Shoemaker called Twice Ministered on page 93 lists the 4 impediments to God. Number 1 is a resentment that you will not let go of, step 4. Number 2 impediment is our step 5. It's a secret that you will not tell, step 5. Number 3 is a harmful thrill that you will not stop. Lying, cheating, deceiving, gossiping, steps 6 and 7. And the last impediment of the 4 is a restitution that you will not make, step 9. If there are amends that you will not make, you will not recover. If you've somehow justified in your mind that you're not going to make that amends, you will not recover. We have to make these amends. We have to do what we have to do. Nothing is here saying that you have to be best friends with the person. Nothing here is saying that you have. Now, you don't have the right to make an amends if you're going to harm someone else. In other words, I don't have the right. Now, this didn't happen in my life. Damn it, I wish it. No, I didn't kiss anybody's wife. I don't have the right, if the person doesn't know anything about it, to knock on the door and say, Mike, I kissed your wife a bunch of times and I'm sorry and I won't kiss her anymore. I don't have the right to hurt him like that. The way I make amends to him is I stop kissing his wife. Ernie Gehrig came into the Oxford group. Ernie Gehrig, there's two Ernie G's, Ernie Galbraith and Ernie Gehrig. Ernie Gehrig came in. He was born and raised in Ypsilanti, Michigan. And he was a bit of a Romeo, along with being an alcoholic. And he had a lot of girlfriends, although his wife objected strongly to that. And Ernie found himself with his wife living in Toledo, Ohio, in late summer of 1935. And while they were in Toledo, his wife found out about a doctor in Akron that was curing drunks. So she grabbed him by the ear and took him to Akron, Ohio. And Bill Wilson was leaving Akron around that time in September of 35, and the Gehrigs moved in. Bill Wilson was leaving and Ernie Gehrig came into the house. Dr. Bob and Ann Smith were very dedicated people. Very, very, very dedicated people to recovery. And the Gehrigs lived there for a while, a couple of months, a month actually. And this was now late October of 35. It was a dreary, dreary weekend in Akron. You know, those fall weekends where it's not cold enough to snow, but the rain and the clouds, just very dreary. I'm born and raised in the Midwest. If you've never been in the Midwest on these October afternoons, it's a good day to get a nap. It's just perfect sleeping weather. Perfect. And it was a Friday night and they were at the Oxford group meeting and Ernie Gehrig was in with the men and his wife was in with the women in the kitchen. And she tells some of the Oxford group women that she has a boyfriend now. She's going to teach this jerk a lesson. She's got a boyfriend now. And they tell her, you need to make amends to Ernie. And the next day was Saturday. It was about 3:00 in the afternoon. Dr. Bob and Ann Smith were out buying groceries in the car. And she tells Ernie that she's got a boyfriend and that she's sorry. And he grabs a knife out of the kitchen drawer and he's chasing her with a knife to try to kill her. I guess Ernie operated on a little bit of a double standard. It was okay for him to have girlfriends, but it wasn't okay for her to have a boyfriend. It's a lucky thing she was quick. She was quick on her feet or he would have killed her. And he's chasing her with a knife. And loaded with groceries, in comes Dr. Bob and Ann Smith. And Dr. Bob tries to grab the knife away from Ernie. And he lunged at Ann Smith with the knife and lunged at Dr. Bob with the knife. And they said, you've got to leave our house right now. This was where the knowledge came that some amends should not be made. Sometimes the way you make amends is what's called living amends. Unless the person knows about it, you don't tell them something that's going to hurt them. You make direct amends for harms you've done, except when to do so would injure them or others. That's why you need a sponsor, a good one. That's why you need to bounce stuff off your sponsor. Very important. Very important. Know what to make amends for, how to make amends, eyeball to eyeball, face to face. Women are harder to find than the men, obviously, because women do something that most of the time men don't do. They change their names. They change their last names. So you may be looking for Mary Smith, and she's now Mary Jones, but we have maybe no way of knowing that. So it becomes pretty difficult to find her. Do the best you can. With the internet today, with all the tools at your disposal, do the best you can. Eyeball to eyeball, face to face, restitute them. There's no way in God's name that you're going to recover without making your amends, except when to do so would injure them or others. I want to tell you a story about one of my amends. In the early 80s, after I came into program, I was still morbidly obese, and I was not in any type of recovery really at all. And I went to an endodontist to get a root canal. Today, all the dentists do their own root canals. They don't send you. In my day, they used to send you here and send you. They don't do that anymore. They figure, why should I do that? I'll learn how to do it myself and I can keep all the money. I don't have to get a referral. I can just keep the money. And I went to this endodontist right by my old high school, Mather High School in Chicago. And this guy walks in the office, and the first thing he says to me is, "You are the fattest person I think I've ever seen in my entire life. How much do you weigh? You are enormous. What the hell do you eat?" And I was already numb from the Novocaine that his daughter, the nurse, gave me the shots. And he's right by my face now. He's working on my mouth, and he's screaming at me about how fat I am and how afraid he is I'm going to break his chair. And sure enough, his chair broke. His dental chair broke. And he's screaming at me and screaming at his daughter not to ever take another appointment from me as long as I live. And all the other patients in the office are hearing this. He's screaming at the top of his lungs at me. And the bill, my end of the bill was $62. That same end of the bill now would be $400, $500, whatever. You know what this guy can do for $62? I ain't paying this guy. Years go by, and I come back into program. And now I'm working on my step 9. And I can't avoid him anymore. I've pushed every amends in front of him that I could push, but it's finally time to make amends to him. And I went to the bank, Liberty Federal, right on California and Lincoln in Chicago, and I got a 50, a 10, and 2 ones, $62. 50, a 10, and 2 ones. I can see the teller I could see her putting it down there now, and I picked it up, and I had the $62. And I went across the street to his office to give him the $62. And I saw his daughter through the door, but I didn't see his name on the door anymore. I walk in, I introduce myself to the daughter. By this time, I'm probably down 150 pounds, something like that. And she said she remembered me and that she didn't want my money and that her father died. He died a year before I got there. And she said she didn't want the money because she remembers what happened. I said, "You got to take this money." I said, there were other people I allowed to write off the debt and they didn't want my money. There were people that did that. But I didn't want her to do that because I really needed to give her this money because this was a serious amend for me. And all of a sudden, I walked out of that office and it was like I got in the car and the tires did not touch the ground. I knew that I did the right thing. I knew that I had done God's work. It was the toughest amend I ever made. And I felt great. I could barely choke down my dinner that night. Barely choke down my dinner. I had no interest in food at all. I don't know that I've ever felt the presence of God as strongly as I did that night, that day. And I went to the meeting at Swedish Covenant, and there was probably 150 people there at that meeting, and I got up to share. And I felt so lucky that I was able to do it. Eyeball to eyeball, face to face, make your amends, do what you need to do. Our real purpose is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and the people about us. And you cannot be of maximum service to God and the people about you when you are mired in the food and mired in guilt and shame and remorse. You have to be free. And this is the key to the freedom, is making these amends. The key to freedom is in doing what you're supposed to do as prescribed in this book. Reminding yourself that you have decided to go to any length to find a spiritual experience. We ask that we be given strength and direction to do the right thing, no matter what the personal consequences may be. I didn't want to give them my money, but I had to. I didn't want to give these other people money. And I set up payments, and every month I would pay this one, and I would pay that one, and I would pay this one, and I would pay that one, because I was very free with the bad checks. I was very free with the bad checks, and I had to pay the piper. Oh, did I have to pay the piper? And I didn't want to. And then there were some amends that got by me, and I had to go to my then wife and say, I got to write this person a check. And she was very supportive of my recovery. She said, if that's what you need to do, you go do it, and that's fine. Because now it wasn't my money, it was our money. She was very, very supportive of my recovery when we were married. She never stood in the way of my recovery. She knew that I traveled to do retreats and conventions. She never said boo. She asked me, do you want me to make you dinner for when you come back? Do you want me to pack you something for the plane, a lunch, a breakfast, whatever it is? And I would get up and it would be in my carry-on. And it would have a little note on there, have a good trip, be safe, whatever it is. My daughter would draw me a picture, whatever it was. Very supportive. There were 2 times she asked me not to go out of town because we had something to do. We had something with my daughter, or we had something. So, okay, no problem. I said no. They got another speaker. It was fine. No big deal. Eyeball to eyeball, face to face. Do what you need to do. Make it the number one thing in your life without exception. God will provide for you. I made these amends. I never missed a mortgage payment. I never missed a car payment. I never missed a bill. I never missed a meal. Where God guides, God provides. Walk to God, He'll run to you. This works when you work it. You'll be amazed. Let's go to the bottom of 83 and then we'll be done for the day. Bottom of page 83. If we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. We are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. Are these extravagant promises? We think not. They are being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, They will always materialize if we work for them. Okay. I hope that we have enlightened and simplified steps 3 through 9, that they are very simple, quick steps. There's not a lot of complication in any of the program at all. Very simple, very quick, very, very, very effective program. So it's 1:11. Let's open it up till 1:30, and that in La Crosse, Wisconsin time, it is 3:12 p.m. in La Crosse, Wisconsin. And I got to give Clara a little of the business, or else it's not worth it for me. I got to have some fun too, so I got to give her a little bit of business. Okay, so let's do that until 1:30 my time, which is about 17 minutes from now. Lupita, or whoever is doing the Q&A, you're up.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Harlan, for your incredible simplification of these steps. There are some questions already in the chat, and I'm going to read it. Exactly what is column 5 of the sex inventory means?
What should you have done instead?
Can you elaborate on that?
I had sex with somebody's wife. What should you have done instead? Not had sex with her. I used sex to harm another person. I shouldn't have done that. Look at it and say, what should you have done instead? You should have avoided the situation. I cheated on my wife. I cheated on my girlfriend. I had sex with somebody in the office, and I got caught, and they lost their job along with me. What should I have done instead? I shouldn't have done that.
Okay. Here's another question. I am bipolar, and in a moment, once I made oh, thank you. I'm bipolar, and I made an amend but not with the 12-step program. I didn't know the program at the time.
I have no idea about anything. I have no idea. Bipolar is an outside issue. I do not know anything about bipolar disorder. I'm not qualified to answer that. But if you made the amends already, you're probably going to do it again. I don't know anything about it. It's an outside issue.
So what happened is you make an amend, and then oops, sorry, Harlan, I muted you by mistake.
That's okay.
I muted you by mistake. Can you unmute yourself? Okay, sorry. So what happened if I made an amend without knowing what the program and I harm people? What should I do?
I don't understand. I don't really understand the question.
So this person said that she made an amend without knowing the whole step that you had to talk to and she harmed people.
That's better. You better ask your sponsor, because I really don't know the whole story. I have no idea what happened there. I can't answer a question unless I know all the details, and I know nothing about bipolar disorder. I am not a psychiatrist, a physician, or I know nothing of it. I'm not qualified for that question. I'm sorry.
Harlan, I'm sorry. The question was actually if she has to do the amends again now that she knows the 12 steps, through the 12 steps, that she has to do the amends again.
Did she already make amends to the person?
Not through the 12-step program.
Doesn't matter. Did she make the amends to the person? Did she express that she's sorry? Did she pay back the money? Did she do the best she could to right the wrong? So I would need to know more.
I have done.
I'm sorry?
Yes, they say yes.
Then there's no further amends that need to be made.
Okay. Here there's another question. Do you have that compulsion, have many, is a spectrum, have many degrees?
I think so. I think that some of us are more seriously afflicted than others. I do. I think that addiction is a spectrum disorder. I think that there are certain people that will never reach 300-400 pounds, or they'll never starve themselves to death. So yes, I would definitely say it is a spectrum disorder. Yes.
Okay. And then they want you to please repeat the 5 main character defects.
Selfish, dishonest, fear, resentment, and self-seeking. I'm trying to read. If anybody wants to open the mic and ask a question, I cannot see hands. I don't see any hands up. But if somebody wants to ask a question,
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
yes, go ahead.
Hi, Harlan. This is Clara.
Yo podría.
This is who?
Clara.
Hi, Clara. How's everybody in La Crosse today?
You know, I'm in Nicaragua. I'm in Managua, Nicaragua right now.
Oh, I didn't know that. I did not know that. But you still live in Wisconsin, right?
Yes. I'm just visiting.
Where the
I'm
Black
just-
and Bad Axe rivers come together to form God's country?
Yes, exactly.
All right.
Okay, so this is a question, but it's about step 1. The idea of I know in the 12 steps says that we need to do it perfectly, but how is that? I'm afraid of that step because you know, I'm afraid because I'm not completely an honest person. I'm not perfectly honest, and so how can I do a perfectly honest step 1?
If you don't, you're going to eat again. You're going to die. So
Yeah,
you better
but
get
the
honest. But if you ingest allergic foods, you're going to trigger the allergy, and you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, I know that. It's just the issue with the perfection. That if I get to, think, am I doing it perfectly enough?
Are you compulsively overeating?
No.
Then you're doing good. Keep going.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Clara. Next one.
Okay. Does anybody wants to open, or if not, I ask another question from the chat? Anybody wants to jump in and ask a question? It could be in English or Spanish. If it's in Spanish, the interpreters will translate. Okay, so there is another question here. Do you think that everybody who is overweight is a compulsive eater?
No.
Okay. Okay, there is another question. How do you reconcile these 7 defects in the book, in the big book, with the 5 defects that you mentioned according to the big book? How to reconcile los 7 defectos en el libro, the 7 defects in the book of the 12 steps with the 7. I think he's talking about
defects. I don't remember what the
I
other
think the 12 and 12 talk about the 7 cardinal.
I think you're confusing the 7 deadly sins with the defects of character, gluttony, and all this other stuff. You're confusing the 7 deadly sins with the defects of character. That's what I think you're doing. Look at it, you will see it's not defects, it's the 7 deadly sins of gluttony and selfishness and all this other stuff. I can't remember them off the top of my head. I'm dead tired. I've been talking all day, but yeah, one is the 7 deadly sins and one is the defects of character.
¿Cómo se vincula la codependencia a las relaciones amorosas, pareja y la angustia? Oh, okay, yeah, seems like I missed one. And it says, please ask Harlan, how do you join the codependence with the, how is codependence related to the love relations or the couples and the anxiety?
I'm not sure. That would probably best be addressed in either CODA or in Love Addicts Anonymous, SLAA. I don't really know. But my codependency issues or my Al-Anon issues or whatever are really healing very beautifully through the 12 steps. But if you need CODA, go do it. If you need Al-Anon, go do it. If you need SLAA, go do it. Do what you need to do to recover. But I don't really know the answer to that question. I really don't.
Okay, here's another one. Did you struggle moving into maintenance? I
Why,
have
what?
been. Did you struggle moving into maintenance? Maintenance?
Did I struggle moving into maintenance? No.
I have been. This is more. I have been losing 300 pounds over 4.5 years, and my provider states I am 15 to a goal, and my provider states that I'm 15 to goal. How did you I guess 15 pounds to the goal weight? How did you focus change, or did it? I feel let down a bit that when it comes down to it, it's still the same program, same work to do. Why doesn't that feel like a letdown? Why doesn't
Well,
that feel like a
what's
letdown?
happening here is you're not shaking up your program. You're not keeping it fresh. You're not sponsoring. You're probably not doing a lot of 10 steps. You're not getting to different meetings. You're not shaking up your program. I don't think you're having a problem struggling with maintenance. I think you're bored. It sounds to me like you're bored with your program. You got to do what you got to do to shake it up. Shake it up. Are you sponsoring? Doesn't sound like it. Doesn't sound like you're sponsoring. Doesn't sound like you're helping others in that way. Doesn't sound like you're doing a lot of 10 steps. Doesn't sound like you're doing a lot of 11 steps. Doesn't sound like you're using Zoom or using your face-to-face meetings to get to some different meetings and shake it up a bit. That's where I think you're lacking. I don't think it has anything to do with a maintenance food plan. Nothing. It doesn't sound like that to me. It sounds to me like you're bored. And the way to keep a program fresh and green is to keep doing new things and keep expanding your horizons. That's the key.
Here's another one. Please comment on self-care and service.
Think what?
Please comment on self-care and service.
Do service and do self-care. Extend yourself to do service and take care of yourself. There's not much else to say. Wash your hair, brush your teeth, put on clean clothes, do service, sponsor, do what you need to do. When they need somebody to read something, read it. When they need somebody to be this, whatever, be it, do it. You don't have to dance at every wedding, but extend yourself. Makes you feel like more a part of the group rather than apart from.
Okay, here's another one. When can I start sponsoring?
When you've had a spiritual awakening as a result of the steps, just like it says in the steps. It says on the 12th step, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. Where is the person in the steps? I don't know. Is the person here? Where are you in the steps? Well, anyway, it doesn't matter. They don't have to answer. But if you're midway or so through, not midway, if you're doing 10, 11, and if you're doing 10 and 11s, which you should begin, I begin my people on 10s as soon as we come out of 5. 6, 7, 8, we start 9, we start 10, we start 11, all the same day. Once you're doing that and you're getting a head of steam up, now you should start sponsoring.
Okay. Any Fabiola has the hands up. Go ahead, Fabiola.
Thank you. This is Fabiola Berrider. Thank you, Harlem. Can I do amends without, would it be a correct amend or a true one without talking in person with that person? Because it's someone in my family that it's a risk for a physical harm for me and my son. I have forgiven and I know my part of the issue.
Is this person an abuser, a physical abuser?
Yes.
Yeah, well, then you don't want to put yourself in danger or your son in danger. You can write them a letter.
Okay.
You can do it. That's one you can do on the phone or on Zoom. Or
All
you
right.
can write them a letter. You know, that's all you can do. You always want to get feedback from the person, but if the person is a danger, then
Mhm.
you don't have to put yourself in jeopardy.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Fabiola. Carol, you please go ahead. Carol, you need to.
Sorry. Why did you say that fear was a character defect?
Because it is.
But it's an instinct. Why would it be a
No, it's
character?
not. No, it's not. It's a defective character. It's not. There's no instinct of fear. The instincts are social, security, and sex. Now, fear can be used to protect you. All the defects of character have double-edged swords. If we didn't have some greed, we wouldn't go make money. If we didn't have some lust, we wouldn't repopulate the earth. You know, things like that. But fear is a defect of character.
Are you meaning that I'm afraid to take an action? Is that in that sense?
Probably.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Probably.
Okay, we have time for one more question.
One more.
This is Sue. I have a question, Harlan.
Okay, Sue.
Thank you for your service. I know I listen to you a lot, and I know that for step 4, you do a very quick time for like resentments,
Right,
that kind of thing.
right.
But my question is, the mental twist is based on a buildup of emotion and things that we've buried.
Right.
And so I don't know how you can do a quick step on resentment if you've got to dig down and get out all that
No
emotional.
digging down. There's no digging down in step 4 at all. Just write it down. You don't have to dig up every little detail. Write it down and move forward and move on.
So you're
You don't
just
have-
looking at the resentments that are right there, that are right in your life bothering you,
From
not something from
all the way back,
high
but you don't
school
have to
or-
dig anything. If you're not conscious of it, it'll come up in your 10 steps. There's no digging, there's
okay.
no studying, there's no ruminating, nothing. Write them down. If you miss
Oh.
1 or 2 or 10, they'll come up in your 10 steps.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you.
You don't have to sit and perseverate and, oh my God, and call this guy and that person. You don't have to do that. That's counterproductive.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, guys, let's go do what we need to do for the rest of our day. And I will see you all tomorrow morning. That's going to be La Crosse, Wisconsin time, 9 a.m., which is 7 a.m. my time. And we're going to do 10, 11, and 12. I'll see you all then. I hope you have a great rest of the day.
Yeah, will you finish with the Serenity Prayer?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. Let's close with the Serenity Prayer.
Thank you.
God, grant me
Oh, grant me the
to
serenity to
accept
accept
the things I cannot
change,
change,
courage,
things I can,
and the
the
wisdom
wisdom
to know the truth.
thy will, not mine, be done.
All right, guys. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you, Harlan.
Thank you.
Thank you.